Hi, mystery writers. Whoa, mystery writing studio. And today I want to talk about getting stuck and how it's not writer's block. And it happens to everyone, so it's part of the process. You're at some point in your story, and all of a sudden you don't know where to go next. And so, first of all, if you stop writing, it's not writer's block. You just don't know where to go next with your story. You may feel as though you've written yourself into a corner with no way out, or you get bogged down with detail and lose that narrative drive and the focus of your story. But whatever the reason, your writing stops. So today I just wanted to do a quick little tutorial about uh, 5 ways to get back in and move your story forward so you don't have to stay stuck. All right. So one of the things you can do is to bridge to the next story event. Sometimes you're at one point in the story and don't know how to get to the next point in your story, the one that you know comes next. So before you go to that next action, you can write a scene where the protagonist, your sleuth, reflects on what has happened so far and possibly what happened in that last scene where you got stuck, um, that brought them to the point where they are right now. And that builds a bridge to what's going to happen next, what you had planned to have happen in your story. Okay, that's one way. Another way is um, character arc development. And now is a good time to look at your character for your the character arc for your main characters. So you can give one of your characters a problem to overcome, and oftentimes for us, because we're writing external motivation about solving the crime, one of the best things you can do is uh, try to address an internal conflict that your character has and that they need to overcome. And it doesn't need to be big, but it just reveals a growth step or a realization for that character. Just one little thing that kind of moves the story forward. Okay. So then, what if you feel that you've written yourself into a corner? Um, it's time to brainstorm at least 5 other story paths. Um, you may have to do some revision on the parts that you've already written, but you'll get yourself and your story out of that stuck place. So if you really feel stuck and you really don't know where the story needs to go next, um, just take some time out from the writing part and brainstorm at least 5 different ways that um, the story could go from the point where you're stuck. And as you're doing that, I love brainstorming because usually while you're brainstorming, the thing that you need actually appears. Okay. So that's one of the best things you can do when you feel like you're stuck, you've written yourself into a corner. Sometimes you're stuck because of detail overload. Uh, your story may be going nowhere because you're loading it with detail without any action or response to an action. So just stop with the detail for a while and give your characters something to do or something to say. Give them some action. Okay? Um, and I know I said it before, I'll say it again, dialogue is action. So give them some action. Uh, Double check that your detail moves the story forward. You may have to take out some of that detail. Sometimes it's fun to get all involved in details and then you find that they're really not moving the story forward, which is why you're feeling stuck. Um, and if that detail narrative doesn't move the story forward, then cut it out and get into some dialogue and action. Okay. Okay, and then the fifth thing is the story structure itself. Sometimes you can spend time in a specific section of your story and you lose the narrative drive. So, what that means is you get really involved in the scene or the chapter and all the things that are happening. And one of the reasons that you're stuck is that you're not seeing what's coming next in your story. Um, and those stories lost because it's like that old adage of the trees and the forest. You're seeing, at this point, you're seeing only the trees, and you need to step back mentally and look at the whole forest. Where does this detailed, exciting scene chapter that you love so much, where does it fit in this story? And how can you move your story from there? So you can use a story structure to get back to moving the story forward. It's from Aristotle's Three Acts. To story beats, you take a look at where your story is now and where you were stuck to get back into the structure. One of the things I like to do with this is at the end of each chapter, I want to have a hint of what's going to happen next. So, if your characters, for example, if your character's about to take action and they're going to confront somebody, they're going to interview a suspect who was, say, reluctant before, not very forthcoming, and your sleuth is going back to talk to them again. Right at the end of that chapter, where your sleuth makes the decision to go back to see them, you can raise a question about what is going to happen when your sleuth actually confronts this character. That kind of gives you some momentum to get to that next chapter. And one of the other things that I wanted to give you a hint about with this is that thing that happens when characters, you're writing away and all of a sudden your character does something, they say something that you didn't expect, you hadn't planned it, and it's the right thing, you just don't know and you want to keep it, but you're not sure what it's doing for this story. So what I like to do is take a step back, look at my overall story structure, and look at what the next plot point is for my story, so I can then kind of head my story back toward that next plot point where it's a pinch point, or it's the middle with the reversal, or that second pinch point. Just kind of, how am I going to take this unexpected action and keep moving the story toward the next plot point? Okay, those are a couple of extras from Zara. And then one other thing you can do, this isn't in the five that I listed, but one other thing that you can do is add a MacGuffin. Just add a thing, all right? Um, um, for instance, I was working on a story and it seemed to have nothing to say, and I really don't believe in writer's block, so I knew something was wrong with my story itself, okay? And then I remembered Alfred Hitchcock's advice that every story needs a MacGuffin. And what that is an object or a device that serves merely as a trigger for the plot. So it just gets the characters going and gets them into the story. Um, So in this particular instance, once I found the MacGuffin for my story, the dialogue I was writing came to life and the story moved forward, and I saw how the MacGuffin would trail through the rest of the story. Okay, those are my hints for getting stuck. It happens to everybody. It's part of the process. So don't be discouraged if you feel like you've reached a stuck point in your story. Just take some action to get yourself to the next point. And I always think that heading toward the next plot point is a good way for me to figure out how I'm going to get to the next part of my story when I'm stuck. So if you find yourself staring at a blank page and not knowing what to write next, just take a look at your story and look for the missing pieces and the overall structure. And that should help you with getting unstuck. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them below. Uh, and I think what I want you to get out of this more than anything else is that it's not the end, it's part of the process. Sometimes as writers, we get stuck, and just working through different ways of getting unstuck will get us unstuck. So keep writing, and thanks, and I'll see you next time.